computer networks are, what are the different types by which we can connect two computers together to form a network, and so on. So let's start with the presentation. So very first, what is networking? Now the networking is interconnection of two or more computers. Now depending upon how we are going to connect the computers, it will define the type of the network what we are using. Also, the computer networks enables the computers to communicate and share the available resources as well. Now talking about the applications or the uses of this networking. Now first and very important application is sharing of resources such as printers or any dissimilar applications you are having. Now this sharing of expensive softwares and databases is also it is also possible by means of networking. Now when we are connecting two different computers at two different locations, the networking plays a major role in contributing in a way the expensive softwares can be used in the minimum costs. Now the communication can be achieved from one computer to another computer. Also, the exchange of data or information can be done among the users which are remotely located. Also, sharing of information over the geographically wide areas is also possible. So, if it is also possible that one of the applicant or one of the user is present in the state 1 and the other user is placed at the different country. So the interconnection of these two computers is also possible by means of this networking. It overall reduces the cost of the it also reduces the cost of the system using. Now the need of networks. Now the network actually used for communication purposes. So very first need of network is to communicate and collaborate. Now the second need is sharing of information. Now this sharing of information shouldn't be restricted by means of the geographical area or the remote locations. So by means of networks we can share the information over the wide area networks. Now sharing of the resources. Many of the resources may be available at one position or one place, and it may be unavailable to the another location. Now in that matter the resources can be also shared by means of the networking. Now sharing computer files and disk space. Now it many times it happens that one computer fails to store many it fails to store um, yes, it fails to store multiple files to it due to the lack of this disk space. Now the another computer which is remotely located can be used to share the computer files, and it can be used to it can use the another computer's disk space also. Now sharing of high quality printers. So printers are the output devices which may or may not be available at every location. So the single computer or the single printer can be made available, or the single printer may be available and it can be connected by means of multiple computers. So the single printer is enough to get the printouts of other remaining computers. Now access to the common machines like fax machines, it also works as the printer. Now when we put a fax machine, common modems, access to the internet, these are the common services can be made available by means of the networking. So these are the needs of networks. Now we will see how we are going to use this networking by means of some two models which are called as ISO OSI model, and the second one is TCP IP model. Okay, so we will first go through what is ISO OSI model. Now the full form of this ISO OSI model is, the ISO stands for basically it is an international systems uh, it is international standardization organization, international standards organization, and OSI model is the open system interconnection. Now there are n number of users who use these computer networks, and they are remotely located over the world. So for ensuring the national and worldwide data communication uniformness, the system must be developed which are compatible to communicate with each other. The ISO, that is International Standards Organization, has developed a standard. Now this ISO standard is the International Organization of Standard. This and which have adopted this model, which is called as open system interconnection, and it is commonly used or named as OSI model. Okay, so the ISO OSI model basically consists of the 7-layer architecture of networking. Now these ISO OSI model or TCP/IP models, they basically are the layer structure of the networking. Now these 7 layers are distinct. We are going to see these 7 layers in a in individual manner. Now we will see their order from top to bottom as the application layer. Now below the application layer, the presentation layer is there. Below that, the session layer, then the transport layer, network layer, data link layer, and the physical layer. Now these much 7 layers are there in the ISO OSI model, whose uppermost layer is the application layer and the bottommost or the bottommost layer is the physical layer. Now we will see one by one these layers. Now this is how the 7 layers of the OSI model looks like. Now you can see the physical layer is the first layer. Now the data link layer, or you can call it as DLL, as a second layer. Network is a third layer, transport fourth, session layer is the fifth, and presentation application are sixth and seventh respectively. Now now we will see this physical layer, data link layer one by one. Now the basic layer is the physical layer. Now it is the lowest layer of the OSI model. Now as its name indicates, it actually makes the connection in between the networks. Now it actually have the physical connection to one computer to another computer. It makes and breaks the connection over the network. Now this layer is responsible for transmission and reception of the raw data over the network. That means it actually converts the bits data into the electrical signal, or electrical signals into the bit data. Now it actually defines what should be the voltage of what should be the voltage and data rates needs to be the transmission defined by the physical layer. Now that is how, and that is why this physical layer is important for the networking, because it actually defines the basic concepts or the basic things which are going to be used for networking. First is the voltages and second is the data rates. Now again, like I told you before, that it converts the digital and analog bits into the electrical signal or optical signal. Likewise, we can have the vice versa conditions also. The same electrical and optical signals can be used to get the digital and and analog bits. Now the data encoding part is done in this physical layer. Now the data encoding, let me tell you about this data encoding. Now whenever we want the data privacy or the data security, at the transmission end the data is encoded with a particular code and the system. Now at the end of at the another end, that means at the receiver, the same data is decoded by the method what we have used to encode the data at the transmitter. So these things are also done in the physical layer. Now we will move towards the second layer of the OSI model, called as a data link layer, or you can call it as DLL. Now this DLL synchronizes the information which is to be transmitted over the physical layer. Now the main function of this layer is to make the sure data transfer is error free and free from one node to another over the physical layer. Now the physical layer actually makes the basic connection between the two terminals. It is the data link layer which ensures the error free connection or error free data transmission and reception. Now transmitting and receiving data frames sequentially is managed by this layer. Now you can see this data is in the form of bits at the physical layer. Now it has been converted into the frames at the data link layer. This layer sends and expects the acknowledgements for frames received and sent respectively. So this data link layer is actually acknowledges the frames which are been sent or received respectively. That means whenever the data bit has been sent the data bit has been sent properly or not, it is been acknowledged by the receiver.